has welcomed the Supreme Court's decision to award a bitterly disputed religious site in the northern town of Ayodhya to Hindus. In a major victory for Mr Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party, the ruling rejected a claim to the land made by Muslim plaintiffs. It clears the way for a Hindu temple to be built on the site, where the Babri Mosque stood for hundreds of years before being destroyed by Hindu extremists in 1992. Ravi Agrawal is the managing editor of Foreign Policy magazine. He joins us now from New York. His book, India Connected, How the Smartphone is Transforming the World's Biggest Democracy, was released in September 2018. Ravi, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Just tell us how significant this ruling is, given the contentious nature of the case.
Well, this is immensely significant, not only because it is arguably the world's most contentious property dispute and one of the longest runnings as well, but also because it involves religious sentiment in a country like India, which is secular constitutionally, but has for years seen a lot of tensions between Hindus and Muslims. And what this decision means now is there's legally some closure, at least, to the long-standing question of whether Hindus can build a temple to the Hindu god Ram at the site of a mosque that was demolished in 1992. This ruling now will allow Hindus to build that temple that they have wanted to build for so long, because they claim that the god Ram was born at that very site thousands of years ago. And the government, which this ruling government, the Bharatiya Janata Party of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, had included a pledge to build this temple to the god Ram in their campaign manifesto in the most recent elections in May. So they will end up moving very quickly to construct this temple, and that will have immense ramifications as well. Remember, this is an issue that has led to riots in India. In 1992, when this mosque was torn down, 2,000 people were killed eventually in riots across the country. So it's highly contentious. And the point to make today is that, in part because of government clampdowns and security being ramped up, there have so far been no clashes. So that, at the very least, is a good thing.
It was a manifesto pledge by the ruling BJP party, but how is it that the Supreme Court has managed to come to a conclusion now after so many years of dispute?
Well, they've been mulling this particular case for at least 40 days, and the case has sort of been going on for several years in other courts in India as well. There was another court ruling in 2010 which had arrived at a different outcome, wanting to divide that land three ways between three different groups. I think the Supreme Court had sort of taken on this case in part because they realized as well that this kind of a case, which was so contentious and pitted two religions against each other essentially, and was also a question not only of just property but also of faith, and adjudicating on which faith sort of is allowed to be seen as believed by the court, the highest court in the land. I think they realized that this was a case that needed to be taken on by that court, by the highest court. It is no coincidence as well, of course, that the current government has pushed for this for many years. And so that must have some bearing as well, in that it is a case that many have wanted to be taken on by the Supreme Court.
But of course, as you say, there's one party in this which will be potentially deeply troubled. The Muslim plaintiffs who saw their mosque torn down in 1992. How are their sensitivities managed to ensure that there isn't an increase in religious tension?
Well, that's the biggest question, really. I think most commentators and observers are quite rightly calling for no sort of triumphalism on the part of Hindus as they mark this very important moment for them. And meanwhile, I think just maintaining the peace across the board, maintaining discourse is very important in the coming days. There is a separate case about whether the 1992 tearing down of the mosque was illegal or not, and it has been ruled as illegal, but who should be punished for that? And that is a separate case that may end up bringing some more closure. But for Muslims, I think this comes amid a climate where they feel persecuted, where they feel like their Rights are often questioned. There have, as the BBC has been reporting for quite a while now, there have been lynchings of Muslims. Muslims often feel like they are second-class citizens to some extent. Those are all things that will need to be kept in mind. But really, I think this moment it's very important for both sides to walk away from this calmly. This, after all, is the highest court in the land that has made a decision. It will have to be abided by, in that there is no other recourse. So the question now is how each side is able to walk away explaining what's happened, accepting what's happened, and also being ready to maintain calm on both sides of that table.
Ravi Agrawal from the Foreign